I've seen plenty of players in my time in Enlisted that use their engineer structures wrong. If you've been sent this video, you're unfortunately one of these culprits, but fortunately, in this guide, I'm going to be teaching you all the do's and don'ts of engineering in Enlisted. Engineering top tips number 1. Build rallies. Video over. Everyone, go home. Jokes aside, I'm not going to repeat how important rallies are, as you probably hear this from every Enlisted creator like a more billion times. I'm going to give you some tips on how you should position your rallies, provide some examples, and the best ways to actually protect your rallies from enemies. So why do we want rallies? Simple. To spawn as close to the objective as possible, or as safely as possible, to cut down the time it takes for the long runbacks after respawning. Enlisted kinda be like a Dark Souls game before they added Stakes of Marika to shorten the time it takes to attempt defeating the boss? Capturing the objective. Generally, you can build a rally somewhere in the range of 50 to 60 meters from every objective in the game. The obvious place to build this is directly between your normal spawn and the objective, in line with where the enemy is coming from. Depending on the map or situation, this is usually fine, as it is quite difficult on a lot of maps to push through the objective into the enemy side and destroy their rallies. These kind of rallies will take you quite far in Enlisted, but against elite players who hunt rallies, you're leaving your precious spawn point in a very predictable location for enemies to find and destroy. Try to look at the map and analyze positions you think are close but still safe enough to the objective. You'll also learn in time the tendencies of where you generally get pushed, so you won't want to put the rally on the left side, because the enemy is able to easily flank there, or they spawn more at that left angle, thus naturally pushing through and passing your rally. Also keep in mind that you could construct the rally a further distance away, say 80 or 90 meters. These rallies are really safe and usually never get found by the enemy. But the trade-off is obviously you have less pressure as you have to run farther. Also, if your team is building rallies, yours won't get used often, so you won't earn as much score. Do keep in mind that if your rally is 95 meters and the natural spawn is 100 meters away from the important place, you wasted a lot of time, so just be aware of that. When building a rally, you will notice a white arrow on the floor. This is the direction it's being placed, and the direction you'll be looking when you spawn on this rally point. Obviously, face it in the direction you want people to run when they spawn in, to avoid confusion and time loss. Additionally, don't worry about building rallies close to allied ones, as on the map screen they will merge and have separate spawn cooldowns. Lastly, for rallies, I see so many players repeating this mistake on autopilot. Protecting your rally is an important piece of maintaining an active spawn point. So, what are the most effective ways to do this? You may be thinking that building sandbags is the obvious answer. It is the obvious answer, but it's also a terrible option in reality, at least most of the time. Building a fortress of sandbags around your rally actually makes them incredibly easy to spot and destroy. When I hear beeping and do a quick scan around and I see a pile of sandbags, I wonder what could be over there. Hopefully you see the problem here. So what can we do instead? Simply building your rally inside of a building is usually much more than enough protection. Placing sandbags all around the inside of this building does very little to stop an enemy player getting in there, but a lot of damage is done to yours and allies' AI soldiers that spawn there. AI are incompetent at navigating these sandbags, getting stuck, going in loops, and wasting a lot of time. Stop doing this if you are! You're wasting time building the sandbags, and then the time of AI soldiers getting stuck there. What happens if we build our rally outside of a building? Well, it could be vulnerable to explosions from tanks, plane bombs, artillery. In this case, sandbags could protect the rally from explosions. It could, but also places a beacon for the enemy to find it, as I said earlier. Instead, consider digging a small hole, as shown here on screen, and building your rally inside. This takes about the same time as constructing sandbags and does the same job. Except, in this case, a rally hidden in the floor is one of the most difficult rallies to find. They aren't visible from a distance of more than like 10 meters, and are just as safe from explosions. Sometimes though, we can't get a rally in a great spot, where it can be in a building or dug into a hole, so we could use sandbags here. It's not always terrible, it's just mostly terrible, unless it's the only option. You could also just build the rally and leave it unprotected. Sometimes it's better to whack the hammer and just go. Being fast is powerful in Enlisted. Up next, fortifying key locations. Sometimes one of the strongest plays in Enlisted is putting defences up around the objective or a key location. Sandbags create cover and can protect us from fire by removing enemy sidelines, like windows and doorways. Barbed wire can deter enemies from entering certain doors and slow them down if they do commit to going that way. Check hedgehogs can block the path of vehicles, but actually, not a lot of people know that they really mess up AI pathfinding. If you put a check hedgehog in a doorway, a player might run through with some squeezing, but AI are not capable of following them through this. This can lead to enemy soldiers running all the way around a building, in the open, being easy pickings for your team. I can't provide every example of how to use these 3 fortification types. You can be creative and find out what works for you. The real piece of advice I wanted to give here is that for defending an objective, whether you're looking to capture it or prevent the enemy from doing so, you need to stop building these fortifications on your own entrances to those places. The sides of the building that you and allies are entering from can kinda be considered your territory. Loosely. These are the safest passages to enter, and you don't want to obstruct them. You may think that enemies can make use of these passages. Yes, they can, but consider that they have to run through line of sight from your team's spawns, meaning it's dangerous for them to go here. But still, I see players putting sandbags, barbed wire, etc. on our doorways and windows, and it makes it really hard to bring reinforcements to help those people inside because, well, we can't get in. When looking to build defences, check the map and consider where the enemy is spawning and coming from. At most, you could fortify 3 sides of a building, leaving only your spawn side open. You can also consider that if you leave a hole in the defences for the enemy, they will naturally funnel to that location, meaning they are vulnerable to being shot, exploded, machine gun fire, you get the idea. As a reminder, for when enemies are building, barbed wire is super vulnerable to artillery explosions, and the wire as well as sandbags can be destroyed with TNT charges or explosion packs. Check hedgehogs are a bit trickier to deal with, they are quite resilient. They only take 6 seconds to build, but 12 seconds to break apart. I didn't mention yet, but yeah, you can use this keybind to break apart structures, your teams or enemies, and remember that engineers do this faster than regular soldiers, and even faster with the build speed perk. You can also order your AI to help you break these fortifications down with you, which can make light work of undefended locations. Depending on the squad type you are in, you will also be able to build sandbag mounted weapons. For the Engineer 2 class squad, this is a machine gun relating to your faction. For machine gun squads, you can put up a high caliber machine gun, and for flame trooper squads, you can build an ambulomet if you are playing Axis or USSR. These are powerful weapons. The machine guns are capable of holding down a position and wiping out enemies, but they are weak to being flanked after they've been found out. Some maps you can't really be flanked on, and these machine guns are devastating. Enemies can shoot the gun itself to break it, but this can be repaired by any engineer, using TNT charges or explosion packs to destroy these weapons for good, or until the enemy rebuilds at least. High caliber machine guns are capable of penetrating very light armor, so shoot these at APCs or lower tier tanks and see if you can destroy them. Ampulomets, I can't say I've ever really used. I'm not a big fan of sitting back, but I've been a victim to a few good ones in my time playing. Lobbing giant molotovs over a wall means these are pretty safe to operate and can kill a lot of unsuspecting enemies. Furthermore, if you are running an Engineer 1 or 2 squad, you would be able to build anti-tank and anti-air guns. These weapons will be buffed in the future as some of them are a bit weak, depending on tier and faction, but when these things work, it's amazing. Constructing an AT gun allows you to deal with enemy armor as an infantry soldier. Just remember that enemy tanks are always on the lookout for these and will prioritize you as a threat if they see you building these. And make sure to make your shot count. A tank can survive a tank shell. your flimsy fleshbag soldiers behind a sheet of thin metal, well... As for AA guns, these are pretty nice for taking out enemy bombing runs or pesky players sitting in a plane for the majority of the match. Unfortunately, sitting on an AA gun for minutes at a time, waiting for a chance to kill a plane is a pretty big waste of time. But, well, these are our main option for killing planes from the ground. Weapons constructed of these varieties do not have limitless ammo, and can be refilled by an engineer. You can also use these weapons against infantry if you're feeling particularly cringe. I hate this style of play, but I should mention it anyway. Finally, I'll provide my analysis of engineer available perks. Firstly, build speed. If you're looking to bob the builder a lot of things, then this perk is definitely worth it. However, if you're only looking to build a rally and maybe the odd ammo box with your engineer, it's actually better to take sprint speed. The time you save on running around the map outweighs the speed of building these objects with this perk. Melee speed is an okay choice for engineers, as it actually affects the speed in which you dig with the shovel, although I only spend my leftover points on this skill. The last engineer available perk is the amount of resources available. I'll provide an infographic on screen for you to look at, but the basics are that engineers spawn with 20 resources, and this perk would give you a maximum of 28. Each structure has a different material cost, and consider that if you're bringing a squad of 2 or more engineers, you may not really need this perk at all. The decision is up to you. Hopefully now, you will pass your engineering and architecture tests with flying colours, and more importantly, win a bunch of games in Enlisted. If you see your friends making the mistakes I outlined in this video, or maybe just some players in your public match, send them this video so that we may all become better builders. Thank you so much for watching, hope you have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time.